Seltzer Kings
podcasts.
With Amex Platinum, you can enjoy access to dedicated card member entrances at select events because skipping the line makes you the star of game day. That's the powerful backing of American Express. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/withAmex. Card member entrance access not limited to Amex Platinum card.
What does an 18-year veteran of the tech industry and a 20-year veteran of the military have in common? More than you might think. Welcome, everyone, to the Second Act podcast, leveling up your life's journey. Welcome, everyone, back to the Second Act with Michael and John. How you doing today, John?
Doing well. Had the great opportunity this morning to talk to some Green Berets about transition out of the military and into the civilian world. And man, it was a humbling experience to be in front of them, and just exciting when you can get granular about your experiences and also know that the audience that you're talking to knows exactly what it looks like transitioning from the military into the civilian world. So beneficial for me, hopefully for them, and made some good connections, and hopefully be able to help propel some of them into their next act. So I'm on a high right now, and I don't think I can get much higher, but just doing the cold open with John, talking about Colorado Springs, talking about the Olympic Museum, I'm already feeling the rush of adrenaline and excited to get into this conversation. But how are you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic. Super excited about our guest today, and he certainly is no stranger to that unique experience I think you talked about this morning with that cohort of folks. I imagine going from a very structured, somewhat linear process to an unstructured, nonlinear process outside of the military is, as you said, it's humbling. It's you're going back to the starting line. There's a lot to think about, a lot of considerations to be had. And so it's humbling, exciting, and then a little scary at moments. But you've gone through it. We know many who have, and our guest today is no stranger to that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go ahead and introduce this guest today, who we are honored to have on the show.
Please do.
John Register. John is a dynamic keynote speaker and Hall of Fame inductee who inspires audiences to transform setbacks into comebacks. After losing his leg in a life-changing accident, John defied the odds, rising from a world-class athlete and decorated veteran to a Paralympic silver medalist and global advocate for resilience. John's journey isn't just about overcoming physical loss, it's a powerful testament to breaking mental barriers and redefining what's possible. As the founder of the U.S. Olympic Committee's Paralympic Military Sports Program, John has empowered countless wounded veterans through sport, proving that the greatest victories are not just personal but shared. Renowned for his engaging storytelling and impactful insights, John shows individuals and organizations how to navigate uncertainty and thrive. He's recognized as one of the top 50 global leadership speakers, and his message is clear: with the right mindset, every adversity can become an opportunity for growth. When you bring John Register to your event, you're not just getting a speaker, you're inviting a catalyst for change. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, Michael, John, how y'all doing? Great to be with you. Love that introduction, but more so, John, you got to eat some Green Berets for breakfast. I love it.
Well, I told him, I said, listen, I don't know if I was set up properly. I walked into this room, there was 15 Green Berets. I said, I am not like you guys. We are way off in many levels, but at the same time, in some ways, we understand the special nature in which you operate. I said, you guys are special forces, highly trained. I'm just special because that's what my mom told me. But man, it was humbling experience to be in front of them and talk about transition, which I can't wait to hear about your transition in many ways. But I want to reiterate one of the themes that kept coming up, and it was that in the military, we're in a group, we're in a tight cohort of people. When we get out of the military and start our transition, maybe it's not out of the military, it's in another area of life, we tend to isolate ourselves. And that is one of the most harming things that we can do, is not share our experiences, not reach out for help, not ask, not network. And that's one of the most powerful things. So, yeah, it was great to get in front of them, but it's this show's about you right now. So let's get into it. I would love to hear, John, I know you're here in Colorado Springs. I can't wait to meet you in person, but tell me what brought you here to this point.
Yeah, coming to Colorado Springs, thanks for the question, was really interesting, because I'd been in Colorado Springs when I was working for the United States Army's Better Opportunity for Single Soldiers program as I was their associate director of that program. That was after I had my amputation to my left leg, and I was trying to find myself and what it is I wanted to kind of focus in on and do. So I've been out here a couple times doing boss rejuvenation workshops. But what really brought me out here was the United States Olympic Committee. It is now the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. So they've combined both Olympic and Paralympic. Paralympics, for those athletes, for the audience that might not know, are athletes with disabilities, and they're primarily physical disabilities as opposed to intellectual disabilities, even though there's a kind of small call-out class to it. And when I got out here trying to start these programs, it was to build a youth program, Paralympic experience for young kids to see folks that look like them on the global stage. Take them to the Paralympic Games and build a network of community across the United States, kind of mirroring our high school programs, grade school programs, then our collegiate programs for kids with disabilities. However, in my first couple of months, the war in Iraq was kicking off, and Walter Reed, if you remember back there in 2004, was being overrun.
Yeah.
Because we had not really considered the cost if it wasn't going to be a 6-day, 7-day war. And a lot of the casualties coming back were those that had amputations, a few burns, and the first were kind of single leg losses or single limb losses, and then it moved to doubles, and then it moved to triples, and then we started fixing Humvees better and making sure the arm was better, and so now only one arm was coming off. So it was kind of all these things happening, but Walter Reed got overrun, and so we as the United States Olympic Committee, my boss said, what can we do for our military veterans? Wow. And I said, well, shoot, what do you want to do? I've been working this boss program. I know like every commander across the world and the sergeant majors, and so I knew the whole system and the morale, welfare, and recreation, and those that were running installations, and the director of Community and Family Sports Center, which houses the Army's World Class Athlete Program and the Army Sports Program. So we began to put together, team and I, a military sport program.
Okay.
A program that would use Paralympics sport as a tool for the rehabilitation of those that are transitioning from not just necessarily the military, but the mindset that they're now in of, am I still valuable to my unit?
Yeah.
Do I still have worth? And that was the question I was trying to answer for them as I went through it as an amputee myself. That program turned into a very robust program. I got a few $1 million for it, $5 million for DOD, $10 million for the Department of Veterans Affairs out of Congress.
Wow.
And that wound up turning into Warrior Games and then Prince Harry's Invictus Games. Nice. So that was the kind of the growth of those programs of me coming out here to Colorado Springs.
Okay. What you mentioned BOSS a couple of times. Is that an acronym for something?
Oh, sorry, I didn't explain it out there. BOSS is Better Opportunity for Single Soldiers. Yes, we have acronyms all across the military. But I apologize for not putting that one out there. I don't know. I got into that after getting fired from the World Class Athlete Program.
Wow.
In the military, you always get fired from something. So, and so I was running a program. I chose I wouldn't do something unethical. So because I wasn't quote unquote the team player, because I wouldn't do this thing, I wound up getting removed from that position and entered into probably one of the best jobs I had, one of the best bosses I've ever worked for, with the Better Opportunity for Single Soldiers program. And it really helped me think about how, and she really helped me skyrocket my rest of my career.
Okay.
John Ballenger, you talked about your conversation with some Green Berets this morning, and John Register, you were just mentioning how people question their self-worth and, can I still be a contributor to society in whatever way provides purpose and fulfillment. And in my understanding of some of the military way of operating is to compartmentalize and not show vulnerability and to be sort of the tough guy, tough gal sort of mindset. How do you help people, especially if they've been in the military for a long time, start to go back and create some building blocks to help them get past that legacy mindset?
Well, that's the issue. It's the identity that we have and serving in the military, which can be even exacerbated by how we serve together. Maybe it was in combat, and it makes us even more connected because we may have seen somebody pass away in front of us, or we're very connected to that mission that we've been with, and it's very difficult to try to replicate that, and that's what we're probably thinking about in our head. The same is true for professional athletes.
Yeah.
So they, from 5, 6, 7 years of age, they've been playing peewee, whatever, and they go through high school and they go through college, and it gets the window gets smaller and smaller as they may even get to the professional ranks. That's why we see, in the maybe a Tom Brady who can't let go of it and plays a little longer, or Michael Jordan that plays a little bit too long. While others, like a Jim Brown in football, you can walk away because I have other things I need to do.
Yep.
And so to answer the question, I think is really to understand that I'm more than just this part of my life. This is a part of an entire life. And if I don't have a strategic focus of who I desire to be towards the end of my life, then I can be compartmentalized because that becomes my only identity. And so we have to begin to help people understand. My way is to look at what a philosophy my coach had, Remy Korchimny. He said, John, everything is training. Everything is training. And so what he meant by that was not only what I ate, was how much I rested, how much I recovered. Because if I didn't rest and recover, I couldn't do the workout at the highest level that he wanted me to the next day. It's how I buckled my seatbelt in a car. It's moving, making sure I go to practice at the times where there's not a lot of traffic on the road. Everything I need to think about is what can distract me from the goal that I'm at. And so for athletes or for military personnel, what sometimes we find is that when they should be thinking about their transition, they're so much into their job that it might be a distraction for them to think about the transition, when in fact, the transition is actually a part of everything that they need to be doing.
Yeah.
And so that is, you got to build that in. Even when you sign on the dotted line in the military, you should be thinking about your exit strategy. What is it? What can I learn from this that can help me move to the next either level or position? But oftentimes we're either running from something or running to something, and we're not thinking about that next transition. So when it comes upon us, now we're smack dab in with it, and we haven't built. So what do? It's going to re-up for another 6.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then when it comes to the time where I can't re-up anymore, now I'm forced to be away from these group of people that I've been so inclined to be with, and they're now my buddies, and it's tough because many times you go on deployment and you're away from your family's growing up without you. You come back and, in between deployments, or you're moving PCSing and trying to learn the new job. And when are you going back home to? You've been commanding hundreds, maybe thousands of people. You're going to command that command post 6 now? No, there was another commander in that place while you were out doing it. So that is an identity that people are saying, am I valuable? Going back to your question, Michael.
Yeah.
Am I valuable? Do I still have worth? Becomes the real issue of the overcoming. Because I don't think we really overcome the adversities. I think we adapt and we innovate around them. But had I overcome the amputation of my left leg, I would have my leg back. I adapted into an environment that really wasn't built for me. So I have to figure out a way to, when I transition, to bring what I call my oxygen into my atmosphere in order to thrive in the new environment.
Yeah, that's good.
I love that. Everything is training, and you're always training in some small way for anything.
Right.
And I think you encapsulated the answer to my question amazingly. So thank you for that.
And John, I think it's important because I've been aware of the military suicide rate in outgoing service members, which I know that you're familiar with. But the one thing I wasn't familiar with is actually how prominent it is in the Olympic community. And you brought up a great point. there's a transition period. And I think in the military, it's not as abrupt because you come back from a deployment, you maybe get offered the chance to re-up for another 4 years. The cut rate or the time it takes to separate is much longer in the military. And what I was surprised by is how fast Olympians can go from this is the daily thing, this is their life, this is what they do from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed, to it's over. And it could be hundreds of seconds at a race that decides that fate. And today they're an Olympic training, they're Olympic athlete training for the next set of Olympics. And tomorrow they could be asked to be let go, or an injury takes them out for the rest of their life. And how fast it happens was surprising to me. And I watched a documentary on Olympic athletes and kind of awareness for the suicide rates. And so I know that's probably near dear to your heart, but it is fast. But you're right. You always have to be planning an exit strategy because it could happen 4 years from now or it could happen tomorrow. But you're only bettering yourself if you're prepping for it now.
Right. I wasn't aware of that, John. I wasn't aware of the Olympic issues. I mean, it makes sense to me if you've been hyper-focused for a long period of time to perform at a certain level and you're just executing and you get to these moments to perform at your best and win or lose. I imagine some of those characteristics, especially in certain areas of the military, are present. And then all of a sudden, like you said, it's not there anymore, and you're lost. I think, John, you started us off with finding your identity again, and it's just sort of a fascinating thing to explore, and certainly an area that could always use more help.
Yeah, I'm laughing on one because I may get the quote wrong. One of my favorite movies is The Incredibles, and I think there was, it's time for their secret identity to become their only identity, or something they say, right? And it kind of goes to the movie that we have all these different identities that we have and that we show up as. So we can't be the same all the time. But where I was going is one thing I wrote down here is it seems that there's always this abrupt end to a transition, right? And so I had a disruption, an injury that amputated my left leg. Other folks, they might get, as John Ballenger was talking about, injury to an athlete, or maybe they age out, or they're just not talented enough, and so now they just don't make it. They didn't make the cut line, and so now they're out. They have to wait either another 4 years, or, I think like a Thing Mo that was running track and field, a half miler, and she's the best in the world and got tripped up in the Olympic trials. She trains for 4 years and doesn't get a chance to run because she gets tripped in the into the Olympic trials. So she's out. She got to wait a whole another 4 years now. So and that's devastating, devastating. The other thing when we go back to everything is training is that there's always going to be the decision-making time. When I actually make the decision to commit to whatever the next thing is in my life, I'm going to commit not to re-up. I'm going to commit to doing the Olympic or Paralympic Games. I'm going to commit to not doing that any longer and to try to find a different career path. And when we come to that point, when we come to that time of making that commitment, I think that's where everything converges because it feels abrupt. I'm not ready for this yet. And so we start making these decisions because we don't think we're ready, even though it could have happened traumatically.
Yeah.
But the trauma hits us at a different spot. I don't care how long we train for it, we still have to make the commitment to the vision, whatever we choose that we want to see as our future self. So I think one of the false premises is we can go back and change things. And we hear it said like this: what would you tell your 29-year-old self? Would you have gone through an amputation before if you would have known what you know now? And so that question is a false premise because we can't go back and change anything.
Right.
Anytime someone's trying to take you to go back somewhere, I think there's an ulterior motive, right? Because you can't do it. It's an impossibility.
It's impossible. Yeah.
Like there's nothing I can do in that moment that would help me in my life right now.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that I now have some experiences that makes me play in this fictitious world that's over here.
Right.
But what I can do is I can forecast my life 30 years out and see where I desire to be. And whether it's my faith or my family, my friendships, my relationships, my job, my community, how much I want to be investing, money, capital, whatever I desire to be 30 years from now, I now can back it up to where I am right in this moment.
Yep.
And build a plan. I can build the plan. And that is where we're talking about. We're trying to advance either society forward, ourselves forward, our transformation, and commit to that plan. Yes, plans will change. They always are going to change. But at least we have a target, an azimuth that we're shooting for down the road. Instead of looking back and saying, I wish I would have changed that. Well, you can't. And then you don't have all of the information that you learned during that time period to inform that decision. See, so I believe the better question is, where do I want to be in the future? How do I act right now in this present in order to get me there?
One thing that maybe some people will have trouble reconciling, John, especially high-performing folks, is they're focused on outcomes. Like, I know if I put in the work, I'm going to get better, and the outcome should be, if I'm giving it my all, to get an Olympic medal or to get to this sort of level in an organization or in the military or whatever. And when you transition into a certain part of your life, like you said, it's good to have a goal or a target, but at least in my opinion, I think the outcome matters a little bit less, and it's more about the journey or the process of sort of building out who you are, how you want to make an impact, and enjoy that journey. I love the book, The Alchemist. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's one of the most well-known books out there. And one of the important lessons in that book is about the journey rather than the destination. So I just wonder if you could speak on that a little bit, John, if you've run into those sorts of issues with folks trying to figure it out.
I couch that in terms of entitlement.
Okay.
Right? And here's why I say that. So let's take my journey, for example. I won the Paralympic silver medal in the long jump. Okay. Some people say, oh, you're the first loser, right? Others will say, oh, you didn't win gold. Oh, you should have won a gold. You should have won it. You should have won it. You're so close. You put so much effort, so much work into it. And in both of those two statements, the latter one is, if I should have won it, I would have won it, right? It wasn't that I was trying to jump and win the silver medal, right? So there's an assumption that I was trying to actually do less than what I actually performed. When we take that and we expand it just a little bit, open the aperture just a little, does that mean that you're saying I'm entitled to something I didn't earn? It wasn't as if the gold medalist who had won 2 times prior was just going to give me the gold medal.
Yeah.
Right.
I jumped 5 meters 41. His world record was 5 meters 42 before that competition. He either had to jump the world record or tie it to beat me, right? We were in a battle, a dogfight, and there's always going to be there's only one top spot.
Yeah.
But there's also one third spot. There's also one fourth. There's also one fifth. We take this, open the aperture a little bit more, right? We can say, we hear kids, or I think it's more parents, they should have won that game.
Yeah.
We had the talent, we should have won.
Yeah.
What does that say about the team that did win? Why are you feeling entitled to something that you did not earn? We can take it and expand it out to credit cards. Why am I entitled to buy something on credit when I haven't earned it yet?
Yeah.
And now I put myself in debt?
Mm-hmm.
And so these things, I think, are greater conversations.
Yeah.
And going back to your earlier point, Michael, so we'll just keep in the athletics realm, most athletes that have won their country's title as the best in their country do not win a medal at the Olympic and Paralympic Games. There are only 3 that win those.
Right.
And so what do you have to do? What is the focal point to be on that medal stand And I saw a great, second time I saw it, Instagram post, reel, that had Kobe Bryant. They're using all these Kobe Bryant things now that are out there. And this one struck me because he was talking about, if I start practice at 10 o'clock and I go from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, take my break, I start at 2 o'clock, go to 4 o'clock, take a break, then go 6 to 8, I've done well because I'm trying to become one of the best. But I want to start my practice at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4 to 6, and then take a break, then 8 to 10, take a break, then 12 to 2, take a break, then 4 to 6, take a break, then 8 to 10, rest and start it again for the next day.
Wow.
If I do that thing incrementally and practice that much incrementally, there is no way 5 years down the road that somebody can catch me. I've got too much work that's behind me. And so taking it to the transition moment, what are the things that we are focused on down the road that we can put into our playlist right now and just be a little bit incrementally better every single day than someone else?
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
This episode is brought to you by Global X. Since 2008, Global X ETFs has been committed to empowering investors with unexplored, intelligent solutions. Global X specializes in exchange-traded funds that offer exposure to the artificial intelligence ecosystem, including themes like data centers, robotics, semiconductors, and cloud computing. To learn more about Global X's entire suite of ETFs, from covered calls, fixed income, emerging markets, and more, visit globalxetfs.com.
John, is that we glossed over how you got your start. And so I want to go back.
Yep.
And one, I want you to kind of inform our audience, how you got your start. I know sports were a big part of your life. The military was a big part of your life. I want to hear about how you became an amputee. But are some of these things that you're now living out, were they ingrained in you on an early age, or are these things that you discovered in your journey? Are they things that the School of Hard Knocks taught you and made John Register 1% better every day to where you are now?
Yeah, that's great question. Starting with the last one first, I think it's a bit of both, on ingrained or, I learned it through experience.
Yeah.
Saying some of the things that were ingrained in me were, growing up in Oak Park, Illinois, on the west side of Chicago, my dad being a Presbyterian minister, he's clergy, he's jailed in Hattiesburg, Mississippi for getting, African Americans the right to vote. African Americans had the right to vote back in the amendments of the Constitution. It was people that were suppressing the rights for people to vote. So we're trying to get that for it. So he and 9 other white clergy were jailed in Hattiesburg, Mississippi for trying to get African Americans to exercise that right. So in seeing that, I'm seeing a person fighting for a value that I would later fight for, not in battle for a political party, but to protect and defend the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And thou would bear true faith and allegiance to the same, without any hesitation or purpose of evasion, right? So that informed me on what I was now a part of in our American heritage, our legacy. My uncle, Gloucester Current Sr., he was in charge of all of the platform speakers on the March on Washington, 1963. Yeah. So, of course, we all know the most famous one, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., does the I Have a Dream speech, which is not really about the dream that he has for America and this. It's really about what's going on there. The Vietnam War is about to kick off, Korean War's there, and it's the equities or inequities of people that were having access to the GI Bill and gaining wealth, and another group that was serving the country and not having that access open to them for the country that they were serving in, right? So that is a whole thing that's going on, and equity.
Yeah.
So that's informing me. But when I look at it as the entire context, I also learned some things as I was going through, and I'll hit them as I kind of share my journey story to where we are that brings us to date. So I went to Arkansas as a world-class athlete, ran track and field for them, became a 3-time All-American running for the Hogs. John McDonald, the most winningest coach in NCAA history, any sport, was my coach. So I learned a lot from him and how he built a squad that made him the most winningest coach in any sport, any NCAA history, still to this date. How did he do that, right? What did he surround himself with? How did he build this team? I got a chance to ask him some of those questions before he passed. So now I'm about to transition out of college, and I have a job to work at a television station down in Mississippi for my degree program in communications. But I still want to run track. It's not out of me yet. So I go to the Olympic trials, and I still want to. I think I still got something in me. I think I can make the Olympic team because I've seen it. There have been Olympians on the Razorback track and field team, and that's something I'm after. I'm seeking after.
Yeah.
So I joined the United States Army. Why? Because they had a world-class athlete program. It wasn't promised to me. I had to make it, but that would give me 2 years to train prior to the next Olympic Games. And I said, I'm already there. I can just improve my time. I'll be on the team in 1992 for Barcelona. But on the way to the world-class athlete program, Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm came up. And I went to the needs of the Army and wound up serving in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And my job as a communications person, as a 31 Charlie's single-channel radio operator. But I was also loving the military. So I took the officer selection battery test, scored very well on it, and put that in my back pocket. Why? Because we need to train for our transitions. Everything is training.
Yep.
So I'm keeping those things in my back pocket just in case something happens. I have options around me. So I come back from the Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I wind up switching events to the 400-meter hurdles because the desert just took all the life as far as the quickness out of my legs, and it took too long to get it back. So I switched to the 400-meter hurdles, finished up 17th in this brand new race. I had my race. I re-upped for another 4 because I wanted that. I wanted to make that team. I knew if I just improved my time 0.5 seconds every year, I would be on that Olympic team. It was going to be there, and I was on the trajectory for it. And then I also got boarded in Germany when I was stationed over there for officer candidate school. So I had a recommendation from a group of officers to go to Fort Benning School for Girls and Boys, and I had that in my pocket along with my OCS test scores, and I'm trying to make this world-class athlete program, so everything's looking green. So this is the best thing ever, right?
It's go time.
I'll do the Olympic, I'll get out, I go into officer candidate school, and I do 20 years, I get out, I can work for Halliburton or whoever, for another 20, life is set. But the wind's blowing hard in Hays, Kansas that day as I'm training and have a race the next day in the 400-meter hurdles, and I wound up misstepping a hurdle. I dislocate my left knee. I sever the artery behind my kneecap, and because of poor circulation and a failed surgery to reconstruct the artery, I wound up having an amputation to my leg 7 days post the fall.
Wow.
So what do you do when life changes with one wrong step? You find out quickly who's around you.
Yep.
My wife, Alice, God bless her, man, she came to my side real quick. We were geographically separated. I was stationed in Germany, as I said, but I didn't have command sponsorship to bring my family with me. So she's trying to be, good Army wife and, work a job in West Memphis, Arkansas. And I remember telling the doctor I knew my leg had to be amputated. They go through the whole surgery. I wake up in the hospital room, and I'm in more pain than I had reasoned. And so they called for my wife to come over. They told her I would sleep through the night. It's 11 o'clock. I woke up totally awake, right, from the surgery with this screaming pain that was in me. And they called her at 8 o'clock that morning to come over, but she had just found out at 7 o'clock that morning that the job she was working in West Memphis, Arkansas, had just called to fire her for being gone too long taking care of me. Thank you for your service, ma'am.
Wow.
Right?
Ridiculous.
And so it took her 45 minutes to get me out of the bed, into a wheelchair, wheeled out to an inaccessible playground where I was parked, forced to watch my wife and my son play on the swings, and I couldn't push myself out of that chair. Well, this is the first time I felt disabled. I lost it, started crying uncontrollably, heaving sobs. My wife saw me struggling. She comes running over and said, "What is going on, babe?" And I began to articulate to her everything that was in my head the night before. And that's when she said the words that stopped my downward spiral. She said, "Yeah, you know what, John, we're going to get through this together. It's just our new normal."
Yeah.
When she spoke those words, she really baselined my entire existence, undergirded me with that love she had. And as I started wiping those tears away from my eyes, I see John Jr. He jumps off the swings, hits the ground, comes running with those 5-year-old legs, says, "Mom, Dad, you see my big jump? You see my big jump, Mom, Dad?" And he jumps in between myself and Alice, and I realized in that moment that he's just validated me as his father, and he's created his new normal. And that's exactly what I had to do. So we began to understand now I have to shift the way I'm thinking about things. So certain things happen along the journey. General Gordon R. Sullivan, he's the chief of staff of the Army. He gives me a call, says, "I got another person going to give you a call." It's General Fred Franks, who I was served underneath him in 7th Corps. And he would play a key factor in me building the military support program later on, right? It's just like all these things, you never release somebody, right? They're all part of your life. So I got out, I started swimming for physical therapy, started working for the United States Army's world-class athlete program, and then later on the Better Opportunity for Single Soldiers program, built systems that are still in place to this date. And I started swimming for physical therapy. I wound up making the Paralympic swim team. And saw athletes running and jumping in the Paralympic Games in Atlanta. Said I needed a leg made for running. I had a leg made for running. 4 years later, I go to Sydney, Australia. I win the silver medal in the long jump.
That's awesome.
Right? And then all of that is is there to prepare me for the next level, the next jump, to leave the military totally, not as a civilian, not as a soldier, but now to begin working for the United States Olympic Committee. And all of that stuff I did in the military comes to bear when the question's asked, what can we do for our military service members? It's like the entire life was designed for that question.
Yeah.
To put me in there, all the stuff I went through. And so now I'm not even there anymore. The program's still expanding. And I think that's what we want as far as a legacy is concerned for what we leave in this life. Invictus Games is still going on. I don't do anything with Invictus Games any longer. So I think that's kind of the story. And, whether it's ingrained or whether I learned through the process, I think we always need to be and have learning as a part of our modus operandum, right? And it needs to be part of our MO. Anytime that a person is full, we hear the adage, cup half empty, half full. What is it? I'm thankful that there's something in the cup, number one. And then number two is if I'm being poured into, if my cup is overflowing already, then you can't pour into me.
Yeah.
So I need to be like a sieve, right? So my cup is being poured into as my cup pours into somebody else. So I can now direct the flow of the pouring to the people that need it the most. I can direct it. If I'm filled and the people are pouring into me, I just make a mess. It's all over the place. It splatters. I got to clean it up, right? So that's why we need to direct it. And, going back to our conversation on transition, that's it. We have to always be in that learning mode, because we never know when those opportunities will come back to us that's going to help somebody else.
There's so much to unpack, John, in what you just shared about your journey in a handful of minutes here, but it was so powerful. But it started with the core values instilled by your family, and then having a strong foundation through your marriage with your wife, and getting some perspective from her and your son in that moment of what the hell do I do now? As you're sitting there sort of reveling in what's going on, and then taking that and transforming those life lessons, what you knew, and then where you wanted to go, and find some purpose around what had happened to you to really help others and show that it may be a limiting factor in
one thing, but it really unleashed some other really interesting things in other ways. I mean, you went on to win a silver medal. You're now a global speaker. You've written a book, 10 Power Stories, that everyone should pick up. I mean, you're an inspiration to so many. And I mean, I'm inspired listening to you again, because I know we met last year about this time, and hearing more parts of your story is just makes me question what the hell I'm doing today.
No, don't do that.
No, I'm just kidding. But thank you for coming on our show and sharing some of these insights about your life. And John, I know you wanted to maybe ask some questions about what John Register just shared.
Yeah. John, as you were speaking, I'm so caught up in people's perspective, right? You talked about the events from your grandfather or your father on, and your college sports days, going into the military, and all these things that have got you to where you are today. And some people, I think, could look at it and say, oh, those were all chance events. Those things all happen because of whatever. Some people have faith. I have faith and believe that there's a plan for all of us. Some people could think, well, that's just the way your life, transpired. But this perspective you have is that you're ready for the next thing regardless. Yeah. Whatever the next thing is, you have maybe not the plan, not the perfect plan, but you have a plan. And you're working towards the next phase so that you're not really caught by surprise, or the surprise that you are given, you recover from very quickly. And I think that's a mindset thing. I think that's what's ingrained in you, is the mindset that you're going to continue on, regardless of the circumstances that you face, either you created or the ones that you walked into. But now you're going to keep going because you do have a plan. You do have kind of the chess moves in your head, and you know what the end goal is. You just maybe have to change a couple plays here and there. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, it's totally right. I'll go even deeper, and then I'll give you a model, so for folks to kind of just follow. I know that the end state for me is, at some point, I'm going to pass away. So my end state is to hear my God, Christ, say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of my rest." So I know that there is a plan that is designed for me. Do I have the courage to walk that path? As my Creator is breathing life into me, it is inherent upon me to breathe life into others. That's why I call it inspiration. Inspiro, the Latin word, to means breathing into. So if my Creator is breathing into me and I'm stopping it, then I'm at discord with my Creator. If I am causing nothing but negative skunkweed to rise behind me, I'm planting the wrong things, and it can't be coming from my Creator Christ, right? So I have to be, I'm looking always, what is following after me? If it's roses and buds and things and people are elevating because of that, then I know I'm planting the right things in life. If nothing but destruction's coming after, then I know I'm not. So I have to be very cautious of what I am planting. So it's really these stepping stones of maybe I'm making the right choice or not, but I'm always going in that direction, right? I'm always trying to serve in the capacity that's going to lift up and elevate other people, to let them see the best of themselves. Not that they need to copy me, because they were designed to do something too that I have no clue of what they're supposed to do in their life. And it's to elevate other people around them as well. So that's kind of how I see it. Going back to the first part of your question, how some people can either become a little cynical of it, or they think that, they can go the opposite way too, that everything is laid out for us. I offer this model that I share with a lot of, executives, a lot of teams. And I've been with 5 presidents now, one not as president, one as a vice president. And then I've been with now 4 or 5 secretaries of state. I've been with sheikhs around the world, all these folks have kind of asked me, how did you overcome the amputation? I said, I didn't. Because had I overcome it, I would have my leg back. So going to your point of what did you do? I began to adapt. I began to innovate around it. But there always comes, I think, 3 hurdles that we have to get over. And this is what I teach in my keynotes or speaking or executive leadership, whatever. The first is the reckoning moment. The reckoning is realized or hurdled when we realize we do not get back what we desire to have back after some type of trauma or event has happened in our life. So we have a normal routine, a catalytic break happens to that routine, and now we don't have the capacity to move to the next level. We have a desire to return the way it used to be. I just wish things would get back to normal, is what we usually say.
Yep.
Or I guess this is just our new normal. Once we realize there's never a going back, because it's an impossibility. Once we realize that, now we're free to have a new vision. We've hurdled. So now we're into the second hardest part of the model, the revision. So the revision begins with a kind of redefining and then rebuilding upon that. We don't have it all the way baked out yet, because in the revision, there must become a commitment to the new vision. I have to commit. And it's hard because we have, I think, 3 opposing forces. Other people who are believing for us what we can or cannot do based upon what they believe they could or could not do if they were in our situation. You should just re-up another 4. There's nothing out there for you. Oh yeah, you're right. I should do that. Secondly, we have society. Society impresses upon us, dictates to us what we should believe. This month is Halloween month. It's October. We see ghosts, goblins, goons. I got stuff all around the neighborhood right now of all these skeletons that are out there, things that are to make us afraid. But there's also things that are out there that make us afraid for our mental health. Freddy Krueger, Jason, Hannibal Lecter, all these folks start coming out, and we become afraid of associating with that because those individuals are wrong for us, right? Wrong for society. But wait a minute. Now I feel like I'm in that space. I'm an amputee. Am I the same person as Captain Hook, who's an above-the-wrist amputee? He's the villain. Do I see myself now as the villain because society has told me that those folks are the villains, the antagonists in our stories? Am I now the antagonist? So it's hard to move away from what society has told me that I am and I've believed. And then third, I'm the one that has to commit to that revision. I'm the one that has to commit to the new vision. I've had the world's best hurdle coaches. None of them ever ran over a hurdle for me. Now that hurdles us into our hardest part of the model, the renewal. And this hardest part is because the renewal begins with a rebirth. Rebirth is hard because now everything is totally new.
Yeah.
You cannot use old systems, old thoughts, old ideas to put into this new bucket to get a different output. The definition of new is no prior point of reference. You can't go back. But people think they can go back. And I argue that you're not in the renewal, you're actually in the reckoning. If you think you can go back, you're in a reckoning moment. You're not in the renewal. Because the renewal moment changes, the language changes. We have to give ourselves now space and grace to grow.
Yeah.
Why? Because just because I'm a new amputee doesn't mean I know everything about being an amputee. But I'm in an environment where there are lots of amputees that have been there before me. So the environment's always been there. I just didn't know how to show up in that environment.
Yep.
It's new for me. So I now have to learn and give myself space and grace to grow so I can operate as in this new environment that I'm in. And a lot of people are unwilling to do that. They're not willing to learn what's new because they've been, whatever their family background is or military career, whatever,
Yeah.
They're stuck. And even though they made a commitment, they can't move forward because they got all this stuff in the back of their head and they can't make the adjustment to move forward and give space and grace to grow for them or for the people they might be leading, the teams they might be leading.
They've told themselves a story, and they are sticking to that story. They're not willing.
They're sticking to it.
Yeah.
They're sticking to it. They can't move from it because they're in a state of not going backwards, but in a state of phantom pain. I made a commitment, but I got phantom pain that still reminds me of the leg that I don't have. So after I give myself space and grace to grow, now I'm in the resolve. I'm resolute in who I am, not because I'm bragging, because I've done the work.
Yeah.
And that equals my reward. And the reward is not a destination. The reward is a plateau for the next level of growth. So that's my framework that I share with businesses, companies, corporations.
That's great.
That's awesome.
5 R's.
Yeah, sort of. I call them 3 R's, but yeah, everything's an R in there because it's register. I should have worn my other hat that has a JR. Oh, just a logo.
Yeah, and I've got reckoning, revision, rebirth, resolve, and reward. And
I just I just say reckoning, revision, and then renewal.
Okay.
And then everything else kind of flows underneath those 3 things. But it's I'm still playing with the model. So,
I think you said something, and we'll end on this last question. But before we get there, you said space and grace to learn. And I think that's something, speaking from the area that I came from the military, that is so hard for veterans to come out of the military and give themselves time and grace to start over, right? We end with such precision, and you think of precision, you think of Blue Angels, you think of Marines, you think of cadence, you think of the way we march, right? And we get out of that. We get out of that and transition in the civilian world, and it's sloppy, right? We don't know. Sometimes, there's a few stories out there, people that go from, hilltop to hilltop, but for the rest of us that have to come off that hilltop, it gets messy and nasty. And we have a hard time giving ourselves space, the time to relearn something, and the grace to mess up, to figure it out again, the grace to relearn how it is to be a parent or to be a civilian and not be in uniform, or to be a supporting role now to our spouses who have been supporting us for so long. And that hurts a lot of service members. So I just want to reiterate that for those of our service members who are in the process of transitioning, who are listening, it's okay to get out and be sloppy and to have to figure it out. John had to do it. I had to do it. Every other transitioning service member had to do it, and it's natural.
Yeah. I'm always big about micro. What are we doing right now to practice that? And so think about anytime you go out on a field exercise, when we come back, we give space and grace, right? We come back and we debrief the mission.
Yep.
So we take time to debrief, and then we kind of start correcting what may have gone wrong and fix the challenges, and we celebrate those that did go right. When we go to a conference, do we just pack our bags on the last day, or do we give ourselves another day to kind of synthesize the information that we just learned?
Yeah.
Right? So that we can build these things in all the time so that when it does come time for us to make the larger transition, we already are in the cycle of the process of doing it.
That's good.
I mean, I can't think of a more incredible framework to leave our second act audience with as we start to wrap things up here.
Yeah.
John, and you've dropped so much knowledge throughout this episode, but we do always like to ask one final parting question with our guests, and that's, as you're starting over and beginning your second, third, 10th act, whatever that may be, what practical advice or insights would you share right now for those contemplating or just getting started inside your framework or in some other aspect of what they're doing?
Yeah, I think the advice I always give is, what is it that you want at the end? What is your desire? What's your total azimuth of what is it at the end when they're going to lay you down, man? What do you want to accomplish?
Yep.
And can you back yourself up to that? And going again to what my coach said, that everything is training. You can't just have a military career and then your civilian career is gone. You're still in the community. You just operate with a different uniform. I love what John was saying there. What we have to do is, in giving ourselves, space and grace to grow, is we need to also allow for ourselves the opportunity to see different aspects of our life, even as we're going through the life that we are currently in this case, in military service.
It's really good.
That's awesome.
John, I'm inspired. If I didn't have a full schedule already today, I'd be driving down to your house right now to have lunch with you. You have so much to give, and you're doing that on a daily basis, I believe, with veterans, with Olympians, with the people in your community. It's evident by your story and what you're doing as you go around and speak that you have a heart for helping people improve, and you have a heart for changing people's mindset so they can grow and they can find that opportunity. And so we appreciate you coming on the show and sharing that with us, your 3 R's, and helping us remember to have space and grace to learn. For the listeners who are interested in learning more about you and your business or having you come speak, where's the best place where they can connect?
Yeah, the 2 places. The first right now, and I say 2 because we're about to change. We've got to shift some things around. One is John at johnregister.com, common spelling, JOHNREGISTER, johnregister.com. You can find some videos out there, and you can book me to come out there for a speech or for a leadership lesson or something. The other thing we're doing right now is we found that we have a lot of people coming to us from various communities, and we're trying to create one community. And that community is going to be done on Beehive, BEEHIIV, Beehive. And we're going to have, it's going to be called Elevate Life, with John Register. And it's not like so much life coaching, but it's really for executives in these transitional moments that we have. So we'll have that available. We're putting it together right now. So I think that by the end of this week, we should be up and running. So that, I think, is going to really help people. As you said, John, it's about helping people elevate wherever they are in life. Yeah. So I don't care if you're at the bottom, you think you're at the bottom, we want to elevate you to the middle. Or if you're at the middle, let's get you to the top. If you're at the top, let's get you back to, a higher state of that. So it's all about elevation in what we're talking about. And we'll have a lot of these concepts are in there. We're going to learn from a lot of people. We have, folks like Apollo Anton Ono. We have some other Olympians. We have some high-level executive leadership from all across the world to really help us have those deeper conversations, and it'll all be on Beehive.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, I feel like there's a second act event that we'll be hosting one of these days here in Colorado Springs near the Olympic Museum with you, John. So I feel like we've got some work to do. I'm speaking it into existence right now.
There you go.
So we'll figure it out. But John,
we're at the messy beginning, John. We're at the messy beginning.
Let's go.
So,
hey, thank you so much for being on the show, for committing time to allow our listeners to hear your story and be inspired by what you're doing. So thank you very much for meeting you.
Yeah. It was a pleasure seeing you again, John. Really honored to have you on, and this was a fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
Likewise. Thanks to you both. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, John.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike, for bringing John on, and phenomenal episode. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.
All right. See ya.
See you later.
The Second Act with Michael and John stars Michael Newborn and John Ballenger. The podcast is produced by Seltzer Kings. For more information on the show, check out michaelandjohn.com, or if you'd like to get involved in the conversation, give the guys a shout on their socials at The Second Act with Michael and John on most platforms. Thanks for listening.
Seltzer Kings
Podcasts.